Bart Keeler beat 2-3-4 with that intro. Okay, so since you're wearing the shirt, all right, lay it out for me. What happened yesterday?
Just didn't get runs when you needed to get runs. I mean, we had plenty of guys on base, but loaded the bases a couple times and just couldn't get them in. Not a great first inning, and I think if you don't have that first inning, you get they got 2 runs in the first. I think if that doesn't happen, if you get out of that inning after 2 outs, you look at a completely different ball game. But just certain things didn't go your way. I think the Phillies, especially during those first couple innings, got some timely, lucky hits that we just couldn't find when we had runners in scoring position.
And Max Fried has given up 4+ runs in 3 of his last 4 postseason starts.
Yeah.
He has some big Greg Maddux energy in that regular season god. Postseason, it gets sick. It can get a little sideways. His best start of the postseason happened to be World Series Game 6. He timed it beautifully. Other than that, Max Fried's been kind of in the postseason.
I mean, we see this when you have guys who are, Maddux is the best example, right? Or the best comparison of guys who are not about power and more about finding ways to put batters off and get them unsettled. But in the postseason, when everyone's so dialed in at the plate, it's a little bit easier. I credit Snitker, unlike the managers that we've had previous with the Braves. He wasn't afraid to actually pull them, which is kind of the, I don't think he went too long. But I know we've seen, how many times did we see in the 90s Maddux or Glavine just stay out there for way too long and then get in a hole you can't get out of.
See, but that's the thing.
We can hot take this to the moon and back that a different manager wins more than 1 World Series in the 90s. So
I don't think that's a hot take. I think that's like a very legitimate take. Now, does a different manager get 14 division titles in a row, and does a different manager get them to the postseason as many times as they did? That's the question.
Maybe not 14, but still plenty when you got 3 Hall of Fame pitchers.
When you've got 3 Hall of Famers in your starting rotation, you've got multiple Hall of Famers in the field at different points in time, and you've just got generally great all-star type players throughout the. Yeah, I agree.
When you're in charge of the launch codes and the launch codes are your birthday, it doesn't make it difficult.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, and so joining in as folks do, Coco says, "Are we whining about Max Fried yet?" And so Coco,
I don't think we're whining about Max Fried. I think Jarrett was just trying to
I am critical of him in the postseason.
Yes.
His best postseason start was timed absolutely perfectly. Otherwise, I think it was Eric O'Flaherty did a breakdown of it, where if you watched his stride length, not his stride length, the timing on his stretch and his windup, when he rushes things, that's when things get sideways.
Yeah.
And it's almost like he gets too amped up in the playoffs and he starts rushing and then starts leaving the ball in the middle of the zone. But when he can take a deep breath and calm down, he's fine. Or step on his ankle. That seems to work too.
Yes.
Well, and that was the thing about yesterday, Jarrett, you mentioned, is like his first 2 batters looked really good. He got them to give him pretty easy. I think one was a weak chopper to first, and the other was a fly out. And it's like, okay, great. And then you get to 2 outs, and you get. I think you got to,
Byrne wants us to move on, so you can.
Another manager who we need to.
He wants to turn the railgun on Vlatko.
All right, so turn the railgun on Vlatko because. It's.
I'm not getting in the way of this.
No, not at all. No. I'm trying to see what if there are any previous comments leading into.
Yeah, I kind of more agree with Soccer for Good OG right now. It's the women's soccer pyramid is screwed up, and I think, we can criticize Vlatko for yesterday's match because I think that he did not adjust to a team playing in a 3-back formation. A good team playing in the 3-back formation. I think Vlatko is I think he's both tactically variable, but his setup doesn't really change. And that's kind of my issue that I saw yesterday, especially was and you heard Alex Morgan talk about this over the summer of Vlatko wants them to play different ways against different teams, which is good. Like you want to have that tactical flexibility and variability, but when you aren't I mean, a 3-back formation, sometimes you do need to make a change of your own formation. And it really could have been very easy to just either move Trinity Rodman higher or Megan Rapinoe higher and say, okay, well, we're attacking in a 2-forward formation, or maybe, you try to find a way to get a midfielder forward. But, I think yesterday was a little bit more of the same in the first half, especially where we had a lot of possession. We did. We possessed the ball very well against Spain. We created good turnovers against Spain. It wasn't quite the high press that I wanted, but it was pressure higher up the field when Spain was trying to build out the back. And there were long stretches of that first half that, though Spain had possession, that possession was very much in their defensive third, and especially their defensive half. And you just couldn't create chances out of it. Now, part of that, again, was that 3-back formation that forced our players wide and forced us to just get the ball wide and put crosses in, which has been an issue for this team. There's too much talent and creativity for you to just get the ball wide and cross it in. But yesterday's tactics from Spain kind of forced you to do that. Also, I think it's very fair to say that there is just a lack of intensity from the team. And I don't know how you blame any one person for that, given the current situation that they're dealing with. It did feel like, especially at the end, that I forget who it was, but I saw someone on Twitter just say, like, you needed someone to kind of go into that avatar mode like you've had in the past, and just no one was able to do that. And I think that's more to do with the fact that emotionally and mentally these players are kind of spent after this week. I tweeted after the game, I think this is a camp that everyone wants to put behind them. Not necessarily forget, but just put behind them and get out. And a lot of these players have NWSL playoffs to look forward to. But overall, it just wasn't good. And it's fair to say that. The question for me is, what does the window against Germany look like? And will you make changes to correct the problems you had in this window? Because if you don't, then you're going to have problems. And then you can start talking about, does Vlatko need to be fired?
Let's go through the numbers. And once again, this is from our friends at Soccer America. Okay, so it's Atlanta United in the mug today. So he's wearing the Atlanta Braves T-shirt and the Atlanta United mug. So
my Atlanta Braves mug broke.
Uh-oh.
I may have got really excited one morning and dropped it.
Yes.
But it was the AJC cover of the finally World Series. Yeah, breakingt.com. So
okay,
I just haven't replaced it yet.
Okay. As I mentioned previously, Soccer America.
Jason, hold on.
Yeah.
Jason, next, we did not get stroked by the Spain B team. Let's stop this.
Okay.
We dominated that first half.
Go for it.
We absolutely dominated that first half. We were a much better team in the first half. We did not get the goals that we needed. Spain got a very lucky goal on a corner kick, something that we did not do very well at all. We did not execute set pieces well at all this window, and that is coaching for sure. It's also Megan Rapinoe needed to remember how to hit a corner kick, because she overcooked just about every single one of them. But yeah, it needs to be a wake-up call. Sorry, continue.
No worries. No, and that's the beauty of these shows, is that specifically if something pops up in the Twitch pitch, go for it, yell for it, and then call it out. That's what this gelatinous conversation is all about. I mean, wherever it comes from is wherever it goes. Soccer America ratings, and I use this as a baseline, and as I said in the past, the Soccer America ratings are like me when I vote for Emmy nominations. It seems I'm a very, very tough voter. So Soccer America's ratings on the day, not a whole lot of 5s. There were a lot of 3s and 4s. Casey Murphy had a 4.
That's generous.
Your defenders, and here's the rationale: played out of the back well, let down by your defense on Spain's 2 goals, did well to backpedal, save an errant cross going in. Murphy parried away across poorly in the second half and was lucky there wasn't a Spanish attacker there to capitalize on the error. All right, so defenders. Haley Mace got a 5. Alana Cook and Carson Pickett both had 3s. Becky Sauerbrunn was given a 4.
I thought both outside backs were not good at all, and that's an area of concern. I think we definitely need to address the fact that defensively we don't have anyone who stepped up to really be a lockdown defender. Emily Fox kind of was that on that left side, and she obviously got hurt against England. Haley Mace wasn't able to do that against England. I think Haley Mace had a very bad camp, and I would be concerned if Vlatko brings her back, because she didn't deserve it. She didn't do anything to deserve a second call-up. Huerta wasn't fully fit, it seemed, so Mace got the start at right back. Again, I'd give her a little bit of credit that she's versatile, but you got to be good at something, and she wasn't good at anything really this camp. Pickett was disappointing, but also she got flown in, between games and starting. So I think it's very fair to say that the back line was a problem this camp. It was also very unsettled, both going into and during this camp. So I don't think the defenders were very good at all.
All right, midfield. Rose Lavelle got a 3.
Yeah.
Started her game strong, winning fouls, finding space around Spain's 5-deep backline, then faded from the game as the women's national team opted to bypass the midfield, look for balls over the top. Andy Sullivan, a 5. Lindsey Horan got a 4.
Yeah, I think Sullivan actually had a better game than she did against England. I think part of that is because the game was a little bit more situated to what she's good at, and she's not the, ball-seeking destroyer that Julie Ertz says. We've talked about this, but she was a little bit better at finding the space to disrupt Spain's attack when it had it. I mean, again, we talked about that first half where we were very, very good at keeping Spain in their own half, and Andy Sullivan was a big part of that. I thought that Rose was hit or miss tonight, and sometimes she has those games. She's had those games throughout her U.S. soccer career. I mean, that's just what happens sometimes with some creative players, where they look really good at times and they look really passive at times. And I think she had one of her passive games. Horan, I don't know how Vlatko continues to play her all 90 minutes, and that's been a criticism I've had of him for a long time. Is I don't think she's performing to that level, and I don't think she's irreplaceable. I think she does a lot of the things that Vlatko wants his midfielders to do, and she does those very well, but she doesn't do them at the level that we need her to do them at. And I am concerned that my biggest concern is that Vlatko saw what happened against England and ran out that same midfield, because it wasn't effective versus England, and shockingly, it wasn't that effective against Spain. Again, good possession numbers, better passing numbers this game, better pressing numbers, but at the end of the day, your midfield has to be creating chances, and they just didn't.
Forwards, Trinity Rodman, Megan Rapinoe, 4s, Sophia Smith, a 3.
Yeah, I think Smith is I think the experiment of trying her at center forward failed this camp. She does it kind of for Portland. It's not a true number 9 striker type position. She does play centrally, but they don't play the same formation that the U.S. women do at Portland. So I think that's a little. It's unfair to expect that to transfer over the same way. But it was not good from Smith, and you're seeing missing Morgan and Macario, because it wasn't great from Hatch either. But that's I forget which rating you mentioned, but there was a point in time where you said like we kind of bypassed the midfield. Oh yeah, it was for Rose Lavelle's.
Yeah, Rose Lavelle.
We bypassed the midfield because we were trying to get the ball to Ashley Hatch in the air. I don't know. It wasn't good from any of the forwards. Megan Rapinoe is not at the level she used to be at, which is fair. She's a lot older and also coming off some injuries as well. But yeah, there are major problems with the way that this team is set up technically, but I think more so from a formation standpoint, there are problems. When you have Lindsey Horan, who likes to sneak out wide, well, that makes sense why your attack is focused on going out wide and crossing the ball in, because that's what Lindsey Horan does from a midfield position. So that's a problem. But at the same time, and I know that Spain was missing 15 players. I'm aware of this.
Yes.
The U.S. was missing a lot of players who normally would be playing right now. And during camp, collected a lot of injuries that Vlatko, to his credit, just isn't going to push them when a lot of these players have a playoff match this weekend or next weekend. So I think it's also fair to kind of take what we saw on the field and go, this was bad, but give the context of these players have been mentally and emotionally strained the past month, really. Maybe even longer than that, let's be real honest. And there were a lot of problems with health in this camp. There's a reason Huerta wasn't able to play, all 90. Again, Emily Fox gets hurt. Those two have been very good at outside back position, and it just hasn't. We don't have anyone behind him, which is a problem. Crystal Dunn didn't look great. I know that's sacrilegious to say, but she's also coming back from not playing for several months. So, to expect her to go back in and immediately be the great Crystal Dunn is a little unfair to her. So, yeah, I mean, I think that criticisms of Vlatko are very fair after this, but I think that everyone in this camp had a bad camp.
Also, looking at the subs quickly, Ashley Hatch, Alyssa Thompson had 5s. Ashley Sanchez, Sofia Huerta had 4s. Sam Coffey, Crystal Dunn had 3s.
Yeah, Coffey didn't have a good game.
Loss marks the WNT's first back-to-back defeats in which it conceded multiple goals since 2001. Crowd of just over 11,000 in Pamplona was the highest for a Spanish women's national team home match. You mentioned,
and that's positive.
Yeah, no question, especially with all the chaos that's going on there. You mentioned late in the match and those individuals that you'd like to see drag everybody else along to try to chase after an equalizer or getting back into a match. A two-part question: who is that individual, or who are those individuals now? And who should be those individuals now? Are we talking things that are mutually exclusive, or are you looking at folks that you think can take that next step and help drag the U.S. in these situations? Who?
Well, let's talk about 2 players who weren't on this roster: Alex Morgan, Katarina Macario. Those are 2 players, especially Morgan in the middle and Macario wherever she's playing, who could do that. They have the skill, they have the mentality to do that. But in this camp, it needed to be Rose Lavelle, and she just wasn't able to do it. And I think David someone in the chat mentioned that, maybe Burned, that it's just at this point she's not really in form, which sucks because she's still probably your best high ceiling midfielder, definitely one of your better creative midfielders, and she's just not playing super well right now for club or country. She hasn't had a super awesome season in NWSL. It's been good, but not like fantastic. So yeah, I mean, I think Rose is the person who you want to do that. I mean, she had a very good 2019 World Cup. So did Lindsey Horan. I think Horan clearly is the person that Vlatko is expecting to do that, given the fact that she's playing so much, and she's not doing that either. But those are 2 central midfielders who, again, we've talked about time and time again, haven't been playing well together right now. And that's where the criticism of Vlatko, for me, really lies, is why do you keep running out the same midfield when it's not producing the results you need?
All right, so we've got, before we get into Twitch pitch for the remainder of the segment, because we have Dylan Butler coming up at 10 o'clock, Merritt Paulson. I wanted to get into that with you specifically because of his impact for Timbers and Thorns, what he has done to the game in the Pacific Northwest, and he announces yesterday that he is stepping away. It's another step in the incremental, and I'll go ahead and say it, the incremental eventual layout of Merritt Paulson with soccer in the Pacific Northwest. What did you think about what happened yesterday?
So I didn't get a chance to read the Timbers Army and Thorns supporters groups thing yet, but I think Merritt Paulson is not the right thing, but is moving toward the right thing. And I think it's very fair to ask him to not be a part of these franchises. I mean, I think, again, it's not just happening on the Thorns. It's happening on the Timbers as well.
Yes.
And you and I have both talked about that, where it's not even the Andy Polo thing. There have been other issues on the Timber side of things. But the biggest problem for me is that there were very clear steps that he could have taken multiple times throughout the past 5 years, 10 years almost, to stop the problems before they got to the point where they are now. Remember, Paul Riley was under him. Didn't really do anything to stop that man from getting hired in the future. Gavin Wilkinson needed to be gone. at different points throughout the saga. So the fact that he is taking a step back is good, because clearly he can't be trusted to make decisions that are going to A, protect his players, and B, make good decisions for his club. It's not my money, but if I were an NWSL owner, I would strongly want him out. But again, there's a lot of people who are afraid of change because they're afraid of the unknown.
And at the same time, it's something that you cannot do. You can't sit there. You can't do it immediately.
Right. Well, that's the other part of this is I would like for him to have said, I'm going to put the team up for sale. Like our goal is to have the sale finalized by the end of the 2023 season, because this isn't going to happen overnight. He's not going to say, hey, I'm selling the team, or like, okay, cool, I sold the team to wherever.
Right.
That's just not going to happen, because that's not how sales of large businesses like this work. How long did it take for Deloy Hansen to A, be removed, and B, then find owners for RSL?
I think it was Deloy got removed, and I think it was an entire season where they were caretaker. Yeah. The league was a caretaker of the
whole. Deloy probably was in a position where probably could have been removed earlier, but it was, hey, would you sell it? Would you sell it? Would you sell it? I understand why a very rich man doesn't want to sell one of his more important assets. I get that. And Merritt Paulson has been a good, I use good in a sense of like, he has helped soccer grow.
The growth of the game.
Yes.
He has been integral in that, specifically in the Pacific Northwest.
But this is the problem that, again, we're facing, is just because you did some good things for the overall sport, which is very valid toward Merritt Paulson, doesn't mean you're in a position now where we need to keep you. The sport has passed you. Thanks for helping make Portland a soccer town. I don't think that he did that specifically, but you know what I mean? Bringing the Timbers into MLS, bringing the Thorns to NWSL. But you're not running your business the way that it needs to be run. And I'm glad he took himself out of those decision-making capacities, but I still don't trust him as the owner of soccer teams, men's or women's. And that's the thing that, again, I'll continue to go back to, is he hasn't shown that he can protect his players or those around the club on either the men's or women's side.
All right. So for the remainder of the time, let's get into stuff. Burned. I know that's the official term. U.S. women's national team got passed by the top teams in Europe, not necessarily in terms of player quality, but definitely in terms of team setup and tactics. In other words, the coaching is inferior, plus the NWSL prevailing playing style doesn't help the players develop tactically.
So I definitely think that NWSL is a different style of play than you're going to see, especially in Europe. It is not a possession-oriented style of game. It is very transition and speed-oriented. It is still very much focused on athleticism. And this is, again, where we talk about the setup and development of players in the U.S. We need to have more NWSL teams with actual women's academy structures. That would be the biggest thing that I would say after this is going forward, we need to have an emphasis on development for women's players at the younger ages within a professional system. But we still did this in 2019, right? If everything has changed in 4 years, then it's changed. Like, great, I'm glad that the sport has evolved past that. But like the 2019 team, it's not like they were playing with tactics that were not much different than what we were seeing now. And again, I will be the first to say that how many times did we criticize Jill Ellis for her tactics or lack of tactics or regressive tactics at many times where, we'd get a goal and then she just became a defensive, okay, great, win the ball, kick it long type coach. So I don't think Vlatko is that. I think Vlatko is trying to develop a little bit more similarly to the way that Berhalter does on the men's side. But we've seen both Berhalter and Vlatko's systems devolve into get the ball wide and cross it in. So I think the issue that we're seeing is that the style of play doesn't translate at the international level. That's been my biggest takeaway from these types of things. And this is clearly something that from a US soccer standpoint, we're trying to play in this style of play that looks really pretty when you have the best players in the world playing it, which the US should, in theory, have better players, the women's anyway. Mm-hmm. But it's just not translating to success right now. And look, I'll also look, y'all. We're not gonna win everything. I would like for us to. Sometimes, yes, you need a wake-up call. But again, the fact that you had 3 World Cup finals in a row, mm-hmm. after not making World Cup finals 2 times in a row. The goal is to get back to that, but we also have to understand that players change from cycle to cycle, and that is true for everywhere in the world. Now, I think that there are tactical adjustments he needs to make, and I think there are formational or player adjustments he needs to make, but everyone's panicking, and I'm just not panicking because I think like momentary panic is going to get lost in the overall ecosystem of international women's soccer.
All right, so then let me ask you this: Coco was winning in 2019 the worst thing to happen to the women's national team?
I don't think winning a World Cup is ever a bad thing, so let's just put it that way. No, I think that it was the culmination of a fantastic generation of players. Again, that generation made 3 World Cups in a row. World Cup finals in a row. One they lost to Japan, playing out of their mind at the best possible time ever, with a lot of momentum and spirit behind them. And he lost on penalty kicks. Mm-hmm. So maybe it was just a really good generation. And you're having a little dip because you're looking at girls like Smith and Pugh, who are in their mid-20s, who aren't producing the same on the national team level as they are at NWSL. Maybe it's because you have players like Rodman and Thompson, who are in the much younger age group that haven't come up yet. You know, I mean, it's unfair to expect 19-year-old Trinity Rodman to be the player who's going to save this U.S. women's national team right now. You know, I think that there are a lot of issues with the way that the team plays, for sure. But I think we are kind of stuck in a end of a generation trying to bring in a new generation type thing.
Did we wait too long for that transition to happen? Because it seems like you front-loaded with a lot of veterans.
Right, but here's the problem, John. We want to blame Vlatko for everything. That's not a Vlatko issue.
Oh, I'm just saying. This was independent of Vlatko. I'm just asking.
Oh, I know. But that's the thing, is the narrative is blame Vlatko for everything, which is valid for what we're seeing on the field right now. But Jill Ellis was also heavily reliant on a lot of older players. Her debut, one of her debutants at the 2019 World Cup was Lynn Williams, who was 29.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. So Burns says this: the U.S. still has the best player pool, but the tactics are 10 years behind.
Yeah, and so that's where I kind of disagree that Vlatko's tactics specifically are years behind. I think that a lot of these players don't play the style of play that they do at their club level that Vlatko wants. Now, that said, we've criticized Lindsey Horan a lot. Lindsey Horan does that at Lyon. You know, that's what she does. I mean, she's a Champions League winner. We have 2 Champions League winners in our player pool. One of them obviously not healthy. So, you know. I think we need to look at NWSL more than we look at just Vlatko. But that's just me. But that's another thing that's coming out of this report is we're having men, I'm saying men, who have been playing soccer a specific way and coaching these women to do it this way. And maybe they're the ones responsible for stunting the tactical growth of women's players in this country because they're not teaching them to be tactically astute and better knowledgeable players. Maybe that's an issue too.
So, did you see this yesterday as a part and parcel? David,
Yeah.
shout out to Riley Jackson for 2 assists in the big win of the U17s.
Yeah, that was awesome. Good for Riley. Glad to see some representation from Georgia at the youth levels. She's been, I mean, hopefully she continues that because, again, as a lot of people have mentioned, we haven't won a U17 or U20 World Cup in a long time. And I agree with that. I don't put a whole lot of stock into youth World Cups. I'm sorry, I just don't. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be performing better at them. I absolutely agree with that. But if you want us to win a World Cup every single time we go out and play it, I think you're going to be sorely disappointed. Spain, I will reiterate, Spain has still yet to win a knockout game of a senior international competition. So talk to me. You got all these youth World Cups. Can't get past the round of 16 or quarterfinals, whichever one, at a Euro or World Cup. So,
well, thanks for coming on back-to-back days.
Of course. Glad you asked me on back-to-back days. I can't wait to come on and talk Atlanta United and as we talk about this post-mortem of the season that has been.
It's hey, we got plenty of time, plenty to talk about, and you'll be a part of it. At Bartimus Prime 19, at SoccerForUS POD. Bart, as always, thanks a lot for hanging out, my friend. We will catch up with you soon.
Thanks, John.